Good morning, Clearbranch kids. As you know, this month we're learning all about compassion, about how we can shine our light out into the world with the gifts that God has given us. So, what does compassion mean? Well, it's not just caring about people, it means caring about people enough to actually do something about their needs. And so this week, our story comes from the book of John, which is one of the Gospels. And the Gospels are the first 4 books of the New Testament, the books of the Bible that tell us all about Jesus' life. And now, John, who wrote this book, was one of Jesus' really good friends. And he loved to tell stories of all the things that Jesus did. And he wrote about some very important miracles that Jesus performed that helped show everyone that he was indeed the Son of God. So, on this particular day, Jesus and his disciples were together and they sailed across the Sea of Galilee. And when they got up to the shore, Jesus went up on the mountainside and he sat there with his friends. Except they weren't exactly alone. Because remember, everywhere Jesus went, huge crowds of people followed him. They were always wanting to see what he was going to do next and to hear what he was going to say next. People were always around, waiting for this, and this day was no different. And as Jesus began talking, he talked and he talked, and he ended up talking for most of the day. And the people started getting restless. Most of them really hadn't thought about how long they were going to be gone. They really hadn't planned for the day, and so they were starting to get hungry. And while a few may have brought something to eat, by this point in the day, most of that was gone, and people were getting more and more restless. Well, Jesus noticed this and knew kind of what was going on. And so he asked one of the disciples, hey, can we go buy some bread or something for all of these people to eat? Well, it's kind of a silly question. Jesus knew as well as the disciples knew that there was no way that they had enough money to buy enough bread or anything else for that matter that could feed all of those people. So the disciples got together and had a little powwow, and they decided that the best thing to do was just to send everybody home for the day. And then they could take care of getting themselves something to eat, or they could eat when they got home, but it didn't need to be on them to figure that out. But then one of the other disciples spoke up, and he said, there's a little boy over here, and he's got a little basket that his mom packed for him. He's got 5 little small loaves of bread and 2 little fish, and he is happy to share it with everyone. And that was wonderful, but how on earth would such a tiny amount of food feed all of these people? But Jesus wasn't worried. He told everyone to sit down right there on the mountainside. And guys, there were more than 5,000 people. That is a lot of people. And once everyone was settled, Jesus took that food. He held up the little loaves of bread and he gave thanks for them. And then he held up the little fish and he gave thanks for those. And then he started handing them to the people closest to him and giving them instructions to pass that food around and share it with everyone. And guys, as he did that, something really strange started to happen. They should have run out after just a few people, but there was always food to pass to the next person. And this continued to happen. No matter what happened, there was still food to go to the next person. And everyone got enough food and ate until they were full. And then Jesus told the disciples, hey, why don't you go gather up what's been left over? And they thought, how could there possibly be leftovers? And they gathered 12 baskets of leftover bread and fish. What an amazing miracle. And Jesus showed that day by that particular miracle that he didn't just care about people's hearts and making sure that they had a great relationship with his Father. He also wanted to make sure that he knew that he cared about their physical needs. He didn't want them to be hungry. He just cared about them and wanted them to be full and to feel good and be able to sit there and learn more about their Heavenly Father. Now, guys, this was an amazing miracle. Jesus took something super tiny, a gift that was all this little boy had. It seemed small, but he was happy to share that. And Jesus took it and fed 5,000 people with it. And while you and I cannot perform miracles, we can't feed 5,000 people with that tiny amount of food. But we do have gifts that God has given us, no matter how small they may seem. And we can use those gifts, just like Jesus used that small gift of food that day, to take care of needs for those people around us. And that's what compassion is all about. And that's also our bottom line for this week. Use the gifts God has given you. Have a great week.